Craig Sellars, founder at Tether. Craig leads the development of global innovations on top of the Bitcoin blockchain as the chief technologist of the Omni Foundation and acts in a variety of roles as co-founder, technologist, facilitator, director, and advisor for several blockchain projects and companies. Let's all give a warm welcome to Craig.
Hello, D10E and Malta. How are you guys today? Yeah? All right, excellent. The speakers at this edition of D10E have been quite fantastic, so I'm honored to be up here as a part of that group. My name is Craig Sellars, and I am the founder of Tether, as well as the co-founder of a number of other organizations in this space, like Vatomic, Block V, and the Global Sun Foundation, which we'll be hearing from Emma after this talk. Also, am the chief technologist of the Omni Foundation, which builds a meta protocol on top of Bitcoin, which actually Tether rides on top of. And so what I'm going to do today is tell you guys a little bit about in the industry where we came from, and then where I believe we're headed with some new technologies. And that is where we go beyond assets, beyond digital assets, into something that we call digital objects. So I can start by saying, what is a blockchain? Now, you guys are all here because we care about blockchains, and the usual answers are that we have a distributed ledger. It's a public ledger where all transactions are visible and seen, and it's a database that grows forever. So the Bitcoin blockchain started off with a single 1 megabyte block, and every 10 minutes it grows and grows and grows. So in general, that's the definition of a blockchain. But there were, in fact, two innovations that Satoshi had that created something unique about what blockchains actually are. And that's that a blockchain does two things primarily. The first one is that it enforces digital scarcity. Now, digital scarcity is, in essence, something that mimics something in the real world, which is actual scarcity. There's only so much gold in the ground. Now, with Bitcoin, there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins, and that's actually encoded in the software, in the source code itself. And anyone who's on the network can look at that and be completely assured that the tokens themselves are scarce. So a blockchain enforces that scarcity exists. Now, the second innovation of a blockchain is that it allows you to assign ownership of that scarcity. Now, Bitcoin tokens actually have value because there's only a few number of them in the grand scheme of things. And if you can transfer that value to someone else, that is, in fact, the innovation of the blockchain. We started off with algorithmic tokens. So the number of tokens in existence were defined by an algorithm, and that algorithm was in the source code. For Bitcoin, it's 21 million. For Litecoin, it's 10 times that. And Ethereum has a slight inflation rate, but that inflation rate is predictable over the lifetime of, well, ourselves, our lifetimes, and the lifetime of the blockchain itself. So blockchains actually have a variety of attributes. I'm going to first talk about the first 5, which are applicable to all blockchains. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about some new attributes that we can add to digital assets to make them even more useful and experiential for us. So we start with being finite. Again, 21 million Bitcoins. There's a finite number of these scarce tokens. They're all authentic. When a miner actually mines Bitcoins, you know for a fact that those Bitcoins that come into existence are authentic. And of course, they can be traced and transferred to others on the network. And all of those transfers are recorded on a ledger that trace all the way back to that initiation point from those miners. They're therefore possessible. If I have the private key to my wallet, I'm the one that gets to control what happens with those assets, those tokens themselves. I control that completely. It is possessible as a bare asset for me. And they are also traceable, which means every transaction can be seen on the network, and they again trace all the way back to their initiation point when the miner first created those authentic tokens. So in essence, a blockchain is a balanced network. Okay, there is no central server anywhere. It's decentralized, which means we all act as peers and participants on the network. It is delegated, so miners have a responsibility, nodes have a responsibility, users have a responsibility, and each of those are defined very, very well and very well balanced in the system. There are checks and balances, as I just described. The system is, in fact, autonomous. Again, no central server, no guy up on high saying this is how this network is going to work. It's simply an agreement that we're all going to pass the same kinds of messages between one another. And that means that this network is, in fact, self-sufficient. It exists, in essence, as this thing in the cloud. So because it acts like these things, it actually mimics a living system. This is a terrarium, where you have carbon dioxide, you have bacteria, you have a plant, you have soil, and within the contained system, it's entirely self-sufficient. So I'd like to propose this idea that a blockchain itself is actually a living thing. Technological life, the first example of this, okay? And I'm not saying it's like artificial intelligence. That's something that's coming. This is more like bacterial life, where, again, it's a self-balancing mechanism that we don't have any effect over because the code is already out there. The message format is already out there, and it lives like an organic network, which I think is the coolest innovation of the blockchain entirely. So we started off again with algorithmic tokens. Bitcoins, Litecoin, Ether, Zcash, anything that you see that is defined by an algorithm or is mined has this attribute. What we realize is we have the opportunity to actually create non-algorithmic tokens, what we call managed tokens. We're using the attribute of digital scarcity and mapping it again to real scarcity in the real world. That's what we did at Tether. We have a reserve of dollars, and for every dollar in that reserve, there is a token that represents that dollar, and they always stay in perfect balance. Well, this management of tokens can be done for anything that's scarce in the real world. Equities, securities, any kind of property. Anything that has actual value and is scarce. So there's something interesting. All these tokens are fungible, right? Every Bitcoin is the same as every other Bitcoin. Every Tether is the same as every other Tether. Now, they're all the exact same thing. They're all non-counterfeitable. Then they're scarce. But they're all the same. So the question is, with all of these 5 attributes, can we add new things to digital assets to make them even more special than they are today? And the answer is yes. So as a progression, we started off with Bitcoin, mining and proof of work to find how many tokens were in existence, algorithmic with explicit transactions. We then built a network on top of that called Omni, originally called Mastercoin, that allows us to actually issue managed tokens and other kinds of assets on top of the Bitcoin blockchain. That also implies or allows for implicit transactions. So you can actually create a decentralized exchange of assets on a blockchain without having to change the underlying code of that blockchain. It becomes a meta layer on top. We then use that technology to issue tethers, a reserve-backed digital currency that is one-to-one mapped with US dollars in a bank account. What we have now is this concept of digital objects with managed scarcity, but with localized rule sets and object interaction within a wallet. And I'll tell you about some of these attributes. They're in fact programmable. Now, people here are talking about smart contracts. Smart contracts are basically vending machines that have rules. You put a token in, it bounces around, and at some point the token comes popping out again. But the token stays the same the entire time. What I'm describing here is how to program that token itself to be unique. So now, instead of having an object or an asset in my wallet, I have something that has code attached to the individual token itself, which means it can become experiential. It can react to things. In fact, it is a programmable smart token. They're therefore possibly combinable. If I have 2 tokens in my wallet, I can put them together. And when they go together, they can become something else entirely. This is an example of a digital wallet. This is provided by Vatomic Systems using the Block V technology. Now, what you have is a digital object that has its own GPS coordinates. And it's been placed in a mall. In this instance, it's a puzzle piece. And I can walk around the mall and pick up this new digital object. Well, it says that I've got another object over here. So I walk to that location, I pick up another digital object. It's another piece of the puzzle. I combine them, and all of a sudden I have a voucher for free yogurt while I'm standing in the mall. And because it had GPS, I'm standing in front of the yogurt shop. So you can now direct traffic with digital assets because they have these interesting new attributes. They're also, therefore, redeemable. Because that token became free yogurt, I can turn that in and get actual free yogurt. Just like with a Tether, I can turn it in and get an actual dollar back. So as an example, I can program a digital object to do things that are very, very special. Like perhaps Coca-Cola wants to make a redeemable Coke, but they want to make sure that they get value out of it as well. So they actually program this object for me to share it with my friends. And every time I share it, the Coke bottle fills up. Until I've shared it with enough people, I've had enough influence, and now it's redeemable for an actual Coca-Cola. Coke is happy, I'm happy, everyone's happy. They're also network aware. Okay? Someone earlier was speaking about oracles on the network, how they feed in information to the blockchain, because the blockchain, of course, is sort of self-contained and only knows the information that's happening there. Well, if you can use an oracle to dictate what's happening to that programmable token, now, again, it can become different than other tokens. An example of this are collectible cards. This is a card for Jeff Gordon, who actually is a NASCAR driver in the US, and I have a commemorative card in my wallet of him. Well, because I have it in my wallet, and he wins a race, now that object has changed. It now knows that he's won the race, and it's now a more special object than if he hadn't, or if I didn't have it in my wallet at the time. So it gives you an incentive to actually collect these things to see if, in fact, they can become more valuable on their own. The last attribute is, of course, artificial intelligence. Once you have all of these attributes, you can now create objects that can interact with one another inside your wallet. Imagine Pokemon Go characters with GPS coordinates programmable in your wallet, in your phone. And if you don't feed them, they will leave. They will hop out of your wallet and go run down the street. and they give somebody else the opportunity to pick them up, which means that you can gamify the world around us and life around us. So the apps on your phone are very similar to what I'm describing as digital objects. The difference is you don't own that app. You have licensed it from the developer, from Apple or whoever else. You can't send it to someone else. Digital objects can have all of the application capabilities of apps on your phone, but they're owned by you, and therefore can be transferred to others and exchanged on exchanges with others. So this is a trillion object opportunity. There may be millions of apps, but there will be trillions and trillions of these individual objects, individually programmable tokens that hop around inside your wallet. So what we actually have here is a future. It's a story waiting to be written at the intersection of experiential technology and our collective imagination. Once you can actually develop and program an individual token to be unique, different from all other tokens of its kind, the opportunities are absolutely boundless and endless. So please apply your creative genius to these things and begin creating digital objects. The tool sets are available at blockv.io. Okay? And I thank everyone for this fantastic event. So cheers, everyone. Thanks.